When I first moved to Australia, I expected the culture shock. You know, new places, new words, maybe a spider the size of my face. But what actually got me were the little things. Weird everyday Aussie habits that I'd never saw coming. And instead of just thinking to myself, that's new, and getting on with my life, I decided to make a YouTube video about it. Because that's a normal thing to do these days. So if you've ever wondered what the 7 oddly specific Aussie habits are that have surprised this particular British guy, you're in for a treat. Oh. Hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor documenting my journey of rebuilding my life here in Australia. So the first one is calling ketchup tomato sauce. I fell in love with an Aussie girl. We moved to London for a bit, didn't love it, so we moved to the Aussie sunshine. And not only does she bring joy and happiness and colour to my life, but she also stops me from making some very embarrassing mistakes here. And the first time I ordered a burger here at Grilled, I asked the staff member for some ketchup. And Maddie was like, no, what he means is tomato sauce. And they were like, yeah, no problem. I have been told by many an Aussie now that it's just a word they don't use here. And look, tomato sauce isn't an unusual phrase to us Brits. Sometimes we call it ketchup, sometimes we call it tomato sauce, and sometimes, if we're feeling cheeky, we call it Tommy K, and everyone's having a great time. And I can safely say this is true because I have asked a few different Aussies for ketchup. They give me a double take and they're like, oh, and then, yeah, they clock what I'm talking about. So you're probably wondering why I put tomato sauce in this video if we use it in the UK. It's the fact that Aussies are focused on it being tomato sauce and not ketchup. By the way, this video is brought to you by Sam's wet hair. If you also agree that he needs a haircut, then hit that like button. Right, number 2, people being barefoot everywhere. Again, this could be more of a Queenslander thing. I get a lot of comments, you know, from people in like Perth or Melbourne, and they'll be like, oh, those Queenslanders are weird. And I'm like, be nice to them. They're lovely and they're some of the most welcoming people I've ever met. Anyway, one of the first things I noticed when I moved here properly, we're at a servo, or a service station as we would say in the UK, and the amount of Aussies I saw walking in with bare feet. Now, I don't really mind it. I think, you know, they're your feet. You can do whatever you want with them. But it was a bit of a surprise for my British eyes because I don't think I've ever seen anyone in the UK walk around with bare feet unless they're at home or they're at the beach or they're at a swimming pool. Other than that, we always have socks on. Obviously, that's a generalization. It's not just servos that you see bare feet at. You see them at supermarkets, cafes. I've seen people be barefoot at a wedding, which that was quite a shock. I just think it's very liberating that you could go outside barefoot if you wanted to, and depending on where you are in Australia, no one would bat an eyelid. And I think that's lovely, and I think that's something we need in the UK, because in the UK, we are constantly worried about other people's judgment of us, what we're wearing, what we're doing. And I know this is just a silly little internet video, but the fact that you could have bare feet in Australia and be accepted and loved for it, and they bring you in as a mate, as one of their own, I just think that's a beautiful place to be. And that is why I love this country, because there doesn't feel like a lot of judgment here, and they are more than happy to sort of teach you the Aussie ways and how to, you know, fit in and enjoy the country here. So yeah, good on them. Note for you, Sam, when you're editing this, don't show my bare feet in the video. Please don't use that camera shot. Hey, mate, stop. Number 3, talking of Tommy K, tomato sauce all over your meat pie. Now, honestly, when I moved here, meat pies didn't shock me. You know, they're a very British thing. We were brought up on them. Meat pie, mash, gravy, peas. It's a UK staple. But when I saw that there was a bakery on every corner and you could even go to the servo and get a hot one fresh right then and there, I was like, okay, Aussies like a meat pie, and maybe they take it a little bit more serious than us. Now, I was walking down the road, I saw a tradie sitting on the curb, you know, he was having his lunch, having a well-earned rest in the sweltering sun. He takes out his meat pie, I thought, that looks nice. And then he squirts the entire thing with tomato sauce and even breaks it open a bit. And I thought, that's a bit different. And it was just absolutely drowning in sauce. And there was no fork, no knife, no plate, and it's just straight in the mouth. That sounds weird. Now, I don't judge anyone for how they eat their food. I eat with my knife and fork the other way around, and I've no problem with people putting tomato sauce on their pastries, but seeing the amount on it, it did make me think, how much of that meat pie are you actually tasting? Now, being married to an Aussie, I've tried many a meat pie, and yes, I have cut it open in 4, squirted tomato sauce on top of it, and I did enjoy it, but I do see some Aussies go completely overboard with the sauce. But what's so impressive about it isn't the amount of sauce being consumed on a meat pie, it's the fact that they can do it with one hand with not a single flake of pastry falling onto their lap and not a drop of ketchup falling onto their shirt. And honestly, those Aussies, they've got it down to an art. And by the way, if you don't eat meat like me, the biggest pie company in Australia, they actually make a vegan version, I believe, which is very nice. And honestly, it's something you have to do here. It's a ritual, and it's something that if another Aussie sees you doing it, they'll be like, good on you, mate. Now, if you're enjoying this descent into my British confusion, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It costs less than a meat pie, and it doesn't ruin your shirt. Unless you watch one of my videos while eating one, I take no legal responsibility then. Number 4 is getting up at 6 a.m. for a run. Now, Aussies don't just wake up early for work, they wake up early for fun. You know, willingly, to do things like go for a run, go to the gym, go for a beautiful walk around the park. And look, when I dragged myself out of bed when the sun's rising here in Australia, it is one of the most beautiful things I've seen. But the absolute discipline and dedication Aussies have to wake up at 6 a.m. or earlier every single day, it's impressive. So when I'm waking up at 6 a.m, I'm still figuring out whether I exist or not. I'm disoriented. I can hear a faint call from a tradie down the road getting ready to turn his jackhammer on. But Aussies, if you go out at 6 a.m, they're wearing like $500 of activewear, they're breezing through the park, running like a sub 3 kilometer pace, and they've got their dogs with them. And honestly, it doesn't feel like they're rushing to, you know, scramble to get the run in before their 9-to-5 job or anything like that. No, because I look at them and they're so blasé and they're happy and they're chatting with mates. They've got a coffee in the hand and a acai bowl in the other, and they're just loving life. And I'm like, wow, that's the life I want to live. It's just vibes and a little bit of sweat, but it's good sweat because it's happy sweat. Number 5 is saying bye once before you hang up the phone. Now in the UK, at the end of a typical phone call to your friends, family, your partner, it will go something like this.
Yeah, see you soon. All right then. Bye-bye. Bye. Yeah. All right then. Bye, mate. Bye. Bye. Yeah, bye. Yeah, bye. Bye.
That's not a joke. Seriously, that is not a joke. That is what we do. If another British person to another British person just goes, all right, bye, and then hang up, oh my word, you would be a bit like, oh, what have I done to upset them? But hearing my wife and hearing other Aussies on the phone, they'll, you know, wrap up the end of the phone call and it'll be bye. And I'm like, what? When I first saw Maddie do that, I said, are you okay? Like, has something happened? She's like, yeah, I'm fine, why? And I was like, you only said bye once. And she said, yeah, that's what we do. And I thought, oh, so maybe this is just a UK thing. And it was one of those classic examples where you grow up with something being so normal that you think it is just normal everywhere. And I know that sounds very naive. So when I came here and there was no wind down, there's no ease into the goodbye with the first 5 goodbyes and then really closing in on the bye, and the pitch of your voice goes up. When there was none of that, I thought, oh, that's going to take me a while to adjust. And honestly, I'm still adjusting. I literally have to physically force myself to only say bye once, and I think another little bye does peep out at the end. So I guess the best way of looking at it is that Brits close a conversation like a curtain call where you get to take 10 million bows, whereas Aussies, they do the show and they just leave the stage. And honestly, fair enough, kind of love them for it. They're not taking any nonsense. They're like, right, end of the conversation, got better things to do. Number 6 is a meat raffle. Now, before I get into this, I did do some research and it turns out that this is something that we do in the UK. It's just, in my whole 25 years, I've never seen this before. And trust me, when I was at uni, I loved a pub. Now, when someone first asked me if I wanted to enter the meat raffle, I thought it was a euphemism and I said, no, thank you. But nope, it is literally just a raffle for meat. Now, when you come to Australia, you know, you might go to the pub on a Friday or a Saturday night and there might be a person, maybe called Gary, doesn't have to be called Gary, walking around with this foil tray with a load of like wet, raw cuts of meat, cling filmed, which they call glad wrap here, which I find quite surprising. And they'll come round and they'll go, you know, would you like to enter the meat raffle? And they'll be holding this big tray of meat. Aussies at the pub, you know, a couple pints in, they think to themselves, oh yeah, that looks like a bit of me, sign me up, and you pay your few dollars, and then Everyone, by the end of the night, is waiting around the bar area. We've got Gary up with the mic. He's cracking a few jokes. Everyone's loving it. The atmosphere is buzzing. People are shaking. They're ready to hear the results. And they call the meat raffle. And when the winner's called, it goes mental. I once saw a man celebrate like he won the lottery, because sometimes you win like an absurd amount of meat. I'm like, well, half of that has to go into the freezer before it's going off in your fridge. By the way, if you've been enjoying these videos and you want early access, uncut exclusive videos, and you want to support the channel, then feel free to sign up to my Patreon. It's in the first link in the description below. At first, when I moved here, there were a few moments where I thought I'd never fit in. Not because of any of the habits in this video, but purely because there's so much more to learn here, you know, in a different country. There, sometimes my accent actually wasn't always understood by people. Sometimes I found it just so hot here in Brisbane in the summer, and sometimes it just felt so different from home that homesickness would, you know, hit me like a ton of bricks. But then I realized that there is so much to explore and discover about Australia. And one of the things that I absolutely love about Australians is that I'll get all of these comments from you guys, you lovely people, saying, welcome to Australia, mate, you're one of us now. And actually, like, although I've just moved here, calling me an Aussie, that's such an honor. So moving countries, joining a new culture, it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect right from the get-go. It's about publicly showing up, making those mistakes in front of your new friends and family there, and having a laugh about it and doing your best. And honestly, if you've been feeling in your country right now that it's got really hard and there's a lot of judgment and you need a change of scene, I think Australia would welcome you with open arms. Speaking of welcoming things with open arms, number 7 is letting geckos roam around your house willingly. I was brushing my teeth with my wife one evening and I suddenly see this prehistoric lizard climbing along the ceiling. I love animals, I've seen lizards before, but one was actually in the house. And I said to Maddie, oh, should I go get like a paper towel or something to shift it out the window? She said, first of all, it's a skink. And second of all, they eat the flies and they eat the bugs around here, so just leave them be. And I thought, okay then, all right. And before I knew it, every time I see some sort of gecko or skink or lizard in the house, I just let it be. I just go, all right, mate, apparently you're doing us a favour. This could be just a massive prank that my wife in Australia have put onto me, being a naive British guy. But they seem pretty happy, and yeah, they seem to wiggle their way in and out of the house. I think they can like get under the door frames and things like that, so don't worry, we're not like trapping them in here. And honestly, they are quite cute actually. It's like having a lizard butler. That's the thing about Aussies, that's why I love them. They don't fight nature, and you'll see it when you're flying into Australia. They'll have the, you know, border declarations video that they play on the plane to you, where they say, don't have muddy boots, don't bring fruit or vegetables or grains in. If you do, it'll ruin our ecosystem. And I believe them, because look, it's honestly paradise here, and you would be protective over it. Now, if you thought this was weird, you'll probably want to know what the 10 Australian words are that absolutely mess with my brain. So go watch this video now. I promise you'll be yelling at your screen by the end of it. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.